Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. In this video I would like to give you a short update on our studio project. For those of you who are a little bit newer to the channel, the studio project is a project in which for years, actually 3 or 4 or 5 years, we dream to have our own kind of professional recording room or practicing room, whatever you like to call it. You know, we live here in an old farm, which is actually which belonged, I should say, to Anya's parents. And there is, next to the building we live in, I'll show you some pictures in a minute, there is a rather large barn that is now actually used to park my car and do, it's way too big. It's actually basically out of use. So for years we have the dream and the wish to go over to that barn with the instruments, and it is actually necessary since we now have the Girard piano, the clavichord and the Frenzel Viennese pianoforte, and the Fritz piano is coming this month in January. So 3 pianos, a clavichord, and there is this pipe organ. I'm pointing towards it now because it's over there. That's a little bit too much, and not only from the perspective of place, but also from the perspective of production capacities. We have 2 children, 2 girls, 7 and 13 years old. And everything that happens here happens in this big living room we're living in, which is great. We have a lot of interaction with each other. But in order to make videos like these, and certainly if we are really recording music, then a dedicated room, actually on the point where we are now with AuthenticSound, is something that you might even say it's not a luxury option anymore. It's necessary. And so for years we have searched for a way to do this in the best way possible. It's not simple. You have to talk about sound insulation. You have to talk about sound development in a room that's really heavily sheltered from the outside. So there are a lot of aspects that go into a design process of such a space. We had wonderful contacts in the past. I will link some videos here where we visited Philip Newell in Spain. Philip, one of the most experienced studio builders in the world. We had a wonderful meeting with John Storrick, a contact that we got to know through Robert Margouleff. And bottom line of this is that it's difficult to work with people on a distance, certainly for a project like this, and certainly for a project in which I've learned through the years that we have very specific demands. Actually, it's a recording studio, yes, but that should tailor fit our needs, which is basically limited to acoustical instruments, and have a very nice sounding, silent if possible, room where we can work 24 hours a whole week. But if there is a fighter jet flying over, perhaps that's not the worst to redo one take. So after a long time having read books like that of Philip Newell, which is a wonderful book on building of studio, recording studio design, having talked to him, having talked to other people, having a lot more books in my bookshelf, I thought the moment is there to proceed myself with the design of the studio and just do it myself. And we have a wonderful architect that we have a meeting with in a few days. So I thought it might be very worthwhile and actually necessary in order for that meeting to go well, and also to give him the input. Because basically, technically, he is going to decide about on things if technically those are possible or not. So I decided to design the studio in detail, draw the drawings and make a kind of document that's 16 pages, I believe, with details as if the way I see the studio as we speak. And so in this video I'm going to share with you some of those aspects, also to give you some background on what I'm doing in my spare time. Since you have noticed, we have skipped some uploads on YouTube, which I warned you before the new year it would happen. But it's also for pure projects like this, it's a few days work that you really have to set your mind to it fully. So come over on the computer with me and we share the studio with you as we speak. I have not had yet that meeting with our architect. So let me first give you the current situation in some pictures in case you haven't seen it before. This view is when you look from the studio, from the barn. From this garage door, that's my car, that's my mother's car. So if you stand, you see this view. Those beautiful trees, by the way, they are going to disappear. I've cried hours and days and weeks for it, but there is nothing we can do. We live in Belgium, in Flanders, and still people kind of hate trees. I cannot only say it differently. But anyway, that's going to happen, but that's our view, and that's the barn that we speak about. So this is the back of our garden. This is when you stand on the street and look to the barn over here. That's our house. So there is a street where we live, and this is actually the entrance for the garden. And then you see the barn in its current stage. It's built in 1956. Our house is built in 1931. You see a view from the garden. That's our house. You see some signs and traces from older buildings. Inside everything is new. It's new roof, new walls. It's a new house built inside the old walls. We've done this in 2003 and 2004. And a lot of things we did ourselves. I actually like it very much. Do all these kind of timber works, but it's not compatible with being a musician. And here's the barn. That's a picture of some years ago, but basically didn't change a lot. And so I'm going to show you now some of the drawings. That's the back. That's where we live actually, from Google's Earth view. That's a view from the street. So it's a very rural environment, but we have a street here where is some passing of cars. So we have to deal with sound isolation, and we have fighter jets from the Belgian army, and I think also from the American army. I don't know for sure. A few kilometers away, but obviously they can produce a lot of noise. We have not to complain so much here. So going over to the drawing now, you see here as I have designed it. So remember the view from the garden. This is, I hope I didn't close the pictures. This is the view where you would stand over here and look to that door here, this one, behind the trampoline, that one. So that will be our entrance and our only entrance. So we will have the outer shelf, which is the current barn, extremely well made. People in Belgium, they know how to make houses, not only now but in the past as well. So it's a double wall, 25 centimeters thick, and there will be a door at the outside, acoustical door, and also at the inside. So, and at the inside you'll see there is a complete new wall built. And there are two possibilities: is hollow concrete blocks filled with sand, or I think possibly we can replace it by, which we call in Dutch silicaatsteen. In English, I've looked it up, it's limestone. It's like this. These blocks are actually 92% sand. They're compressed under pressure, that's the only thing, and 7% of water. If I give you a detail of those walls, I have a very rough design here. So here you have the outside wall, outer wall, 25 centimeter. Then you have 10 centimeters of insulation, and then is this new wall, which is built on 10 centimeters of insulation as well. So a kind of density mineral wall with plywood on top of that, and then you have this new wall both sides. So it is totally uncoupled from the outside. There are two options then. Either we set a complete iron frame inside the building, so to remove those lateral horizontal connections, which actually penetrate in this draft through the box, which will be built in the box. It's possible. We can replace it by an iron, like you see in farmhouses, you know. But we're going to discuss that with the architect, because if that option is much more costly than we're going be heading over to this option, which I believe would work fine. So then we are inside. Here the layout. And you will enter an entrance room here. And here is a separation wall built in a kind of hard stone. I was more on that in a minute. And here's a recording room. So almost no rectangular walls, only this one here, this one. So that the reflections that you build up within this room have no parallel surface. That's important, because if they would have parallel surfaces, they would build up in frequency response, and so you could have either a complete removal of certain frequencies in a sound, which leads to a very empty sound for an instrument or a voice, or it could build up. Typically, if you put the piano in a room that's very badly treated, then you have this especially low frequency built up in a room like this, which is really bad. So this would not be able to happen here. So then you go here to, I call it office now, but it's actually kind of control room, but I don't call it control room since it's not threatened as a control room. So basically we'll have a room to listen to the recordings, not fully separated because this wall is not uncoupled, but still enough for what we need it for. And this will be my working space, also the space where I can meet people and have some meetings basically. You see already the two pianos and the clavichord here. Then here's a wall with an entrance to a kind of room where I can put things like microphone stands, cables, things like that. And this is built from wood with, how do you call that? A plaster at the back side. So a double plaster with that sheet in between. This must act as an extra bass trap as well. Our roof is also here almost 60 centimeters of mineral wool with a layer of plaster, dead sheet and plaster here in between. So also possibly not fully uncoupled, but as much as possible. And certainly here we have room for a finishing inner side of the roof as we would like it to have. That's dependent on the acoustics as it will be, and also on the level of sound insulation that's necessary. The roof will serve mainly to block the sound from the air fighters. So we can add some multiple layers of plaster, wood, whatever, and that would be totally uncoupled from the outside. So if you uncouple a wall or a roof, it acts as a membrane from the outside, and so if a sound wave hits the first wall, then the whole wall needs to be set in motion in order to transmit the sound waves into the inner part of the building. That sounds impossible if you have a wall of 25 centimeters which is like this, but it's actually remarkable how easy sound waves penetrate such a wall. It's unbelievable hard to stop them, and the lower the frequencies, the more difficult it is. The finishing of the walls will be, this will be in a kind of, let me show you, if I can find it on internet, we call that granite. That's, well, you have different options here. You know, this is a kind of possibility, but also having the blocks more in an irregular shape with holes in between, maybe not as this one, and maybe a little bit more with more normal structure. But actually a wall like this, you can tune your room a lot. You can make it very reflectant, reverberant, or you can make it very bright. But in a room like this, like we have, too much reverberation can cause a lot of confusion for microphones. But we want to have an open sound where acoustical instruments feel at place. Since an acoustical instrument, the sound of it is also formed partly by the room. And then we have another room. That's a picture of Tripod Studios nearby, owned by Dirk Houston. And he's always so helpful in helping us. So this is basically a concrete wall where these kind of flagstones, what do you call it, very hard stones, not too thick, are glued upon, so with very strong glue. This has a wonderful acoustical effect. It's not overpowering, it has a gentle brightness and still not too reflective in a way that you can stand in this very big room and talk to each other. And sound will be very open, but you will be able to precisely understand it. And the outside I have just chosen for a kind of classic window, not too larger for the office than for the studio room, because windows are possible to isolate very well, but the larger they are, the more problematic it is, because then the window itself, no matter how thick you will choose the surface or the glass size, will act as a membrane. And so that's something you have to avoid. But we will have plenty of daylight in the room, in the studio room. So that's a short update also. Well, it's not so short, 20 minutes I see. But anyway, to give you an idea what I'm working on, this studio will give a lot more possibilities in production and sharing things with you, and producing courses and producing the things I'm talking about since more than a year, since it will feel also as an office, and it will also give me some unlimited almost time to produce for YouTube, but also to make recordings, with colleague musicians. And you know, that's the direction that we here in AuthenticSound are heading for, to spread the message of what we believe in so much, and rediscovering so much beauty of the music we all know so well in a new fashion. And we have some very nice contacts that we are going to work with in the course of next year and hopefully the years that are coming, and that room could really enhance this. Is collaborating with other musicians in our living room is actually almost not possible. You can play the piano, but making a recording on it is something different. Okay, let me know in the comment section what you think about it. If you have some suggestions, I'm always happy to read those. And in the meantime, I'm working on YouTube a lot more perhaps than you can see in the output of the videos. I'm running through some older videos. If you have seen the long upload with the Bach symphonias, I think there is some content, so to say, on the channel that deserves to be brought into a kind of very structural format. And these long videos, they act like a very thick book, a compilation of things that you of course not watch in one session. But if you, in case of these symphonias, would love to take on the idea of playing them and practicing them, then I can imagine that this video serves in a way that a large or a big book or thick book would serve you. So going back and forth a lot. There are some other videos that will come in the same way, and I'm preparing the AuthenticSound 2.0, so to say, which I'm really excited about. It's not fully yet ready to really display to you, but you will see minor changes happening until we come to a kind of balance between the clavichord, the pianoforte, talking about technique and expression musically regardless of tempo. And of course our tempo research will be very important. The Beethoven project will start, and we'll do some cool Bach things as well, perhaps on the clavichord and both the pianoforte, who knows. So that's all for this year that I'm looking for, hopefully together with you. Okay, thanks for watching, thanks for your support on Patreon. If you haven't given this a second of your time, we'd appreciate that, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.